Now the Wood Elves have swole turtle bros because, yeah, jungle swole turtle bros. Look at these guys, the Zoats here. We're going to be taking a look at them today. This is Flying Taco up against myself. I was helping him to prepare for the Everchosen. This is going to be released long after, well, maybe not long after, a couple days probably after. But the Zoats, you can see, are immediately going to be targeted by my Doom Divers. Not really making the best contact so far, as they do have relatively small hitboxes, but they're kind of similar to Dragon Ogres. You have magic attacks and the magic support of Lore of Life. Just a couple balance spells here, Earthblood, Flesh to Stone. As you guys have probably seen already by now, I'm going to dive in quick with Grom. We've got Orion here already getting started with some Deepwood Scouts, Ariel, some Dryads. Also got some Orc Boys here for myself, charging in on the flanks with some Spider Riders. Got a whole bunch of Goblins protecting, two Doom Divers, more Spider Riders, and Bull Riders over here. Night Goblin Shaman, some Wolf Rider Archers, Blade Riders with Spears pressuring them away. And yeah, we've got the Zoats also. Like I said, they're going to be kind of the main backbone here with Orion. Grom getting a little hog wild. Takes a big old hit from Orion. He's going to try and skedaddle out of there. Meanwhile, we switch the Doom Divers over onto Ariel, since she is a pretty high-value target, but I'm not really making the most consistent contact yet. I'm really, I think because the Doom Divers, like, target the ground under Ariel, they tend to miss very consistently. Like, they're not really hitting her very often, unfortunately. Not doing a whole lot of damage when they do, but we're going to go ahead and keep it moving. You can see I'm kind of trying to spread a little bit and take advantage of my artillery and these cav, kind of cycle them in and out as much as possible. But the Zoats are providing a pretty nice little backbone here. This unit buffs themselves with that Flesh to Stone, or they get Apotheosis rather, from Ariel. They're going to get a heal and just sustain in this fight a little bit. Looks like a Soul Stealer also supporting them, so they really haven't taken much damage at all. 30-40 in terms of stats. For a unit this expensive really isn't amazing. Only 80 weapon strength and 28 charge, but of course that magic damage and the support abilities in particular will be quite nice, having that extra healing and Flesh to Stone. Pretty solid. There's something, a little bit of an Earthblood there. That bound Earthblood just hits them. Gets them sustained. They haven't lost any unit models yet, so they can keep pushing through. They do only have 60 armor. Don't have missile resistance. Only a little bit of missile resistance, so Vindictive Glare goes off. Does make good contact against Ariel. Here, I think we've got, yeah, some more Apotheosis. Was that Flesh to Stone? It was misclicked. Maybe not misclicked on the Dryads, but it does put Dryads up to 120 armor, which is pretty insane for a unit that's 500 points. Basically turn into, like, even way tankier than Dwarf Warriors. Pretty impactful stuff. I'm going to pop a wah here. Continue to try and hold the front line, but Ariel swooping through. Just wrecking shop with the Zoats here. I mean, obviously these light goblin units can't stand up to them. But I was hoping that the kind of the charges of these Orc Boar Boys and the Spider Riders and everything, through successive charges, we'd be able to do enough. This is kind of a build, I don't know if it would have been super strong against the Wood Elves before, but it's definitely something I would have tried. But Ariel, you can see here, still hanging on despite the Doom Divers and the Vindictive Glares. Orion long since dealt with, yeah, poor Grom. He's over there coming back. My Cav has been dealing with the Deepwood Scouts. We've cleaned up a lot of this backline area, but these Zoats have just been pushing through the front line so heavily. And obviously something like Orc Boar Biggins, or sorry, just regular Biggins on foot. The Boar Biggins would also help because of the anti-large bonus, but even just regular Biggins with non-AP heavy weapon damage on foot would do pretty well against the Zoats, I think. Even though that I didn't really have anything like that, was really relying on my cavalry, as a lot of factions did previously against the Wood Elves. Even though you might not necessarily think of Greenskins as a cavalry faction necessarily, just because the wide variety of cavalry units they can bring, that are relatively cheap, you can take just about a full stack of cav. I didn't quite do that here. It was a little more of a balanced build, but certainly, like, 8 units is not uncommon. 8 cavalry units is not uncommon against Wood Elves. And here, I just didn't have enough in the tank, as it turns out, to take out those Zoats. You can see there, that one, I thought they had a buff there. Yeah, it looks like they've got Flesh to Stone. So again, you see them go up to that 120 armor, and it's so good, right? The fact that you can get that support spell, and Flesh to Stone is probably one of the most underrated spells in the game. the issue is that it's on Lore of Life, and so often when you have Lore of Life, you want to be spending your Winds of Magic on those healing spells, or even something like that has an area of effect and multiple effects, like Shield of Thorns. That's what I was looking for. Shield of Thorns, of course, gives weapon damage and physical resistance, right? So arguably can be more useful, but Flesh to Stone only being single target, it is 60 armor, which is super impactful. Also love is, I don't know if they gave it a new effect with this little kind of shield here, this little turtle shell, but it looks like kind of a big old ball-like shell thing sitting on their backs. Makes them look a bit more turtly. Enough for the Turtle Club. Oh man, did Orion just pick up a goblin and like smash him into the ground? Oh, so cool. New Wood Elf stuff is awesome, and I know the map's a little bit dark, but it's fun, nice and spooky, and thematic. But anyway, let's take a look at the post-battle replay. Well played to Playing Taco. I've got one more to show you guys, since that one was relatively quick, but the Zoats, man, cleaning up hordes of goblins, which is not something you necessarily expect. I mean, they are kind of anti-large without the best stats in the world, but just the sustain between the healing and the Flesh to Stone, they are both able to just about pay back their value purely in terms of damage, not to mention, of course, throwing out those other support abilities, just kind of having that mass to punch through. I did manage to clean up the Deepwood Scouts pretty well. They didn't really pay for themselves. Blade Riders with Spears also kind of just there. Infantry doing okay, but largely getting crumped. Aerial also I was able to manage pretty decently. Orion did get loose a little bit, though, taking out Grom the Paunch. Obviously, if I would have been able to keep Grom alive, it would have been better for me, but yeah, Orion's very, very scary now. You really can't knock him over with Chariot Lords like you used to be able to. How about these goblins, though? 503 points in terms of value, even with the chevrons. I mean, that is just excellent value in general. The other ones, not so much, but it's okay. 235 value, 0 kills. Must have been fighting the Zoats. Just get mopped by them. 8 Peak Loons definitely didn't pay for themselves. Spider Riders also had a rough time. The Boar Riders did okay. They're probably the most cost-effective part of my army. I mean, Spider Rider, or Wolf Rider Archers, rather, kind of also barely paid for themselves in some cases, also didn't in some cases. Doom Divers, pretty cost-effective, so I had some units that were, in terms of damage, cost-effective for me, but those Zoats, man, just cleaned up my whole build pretty much between the Zoats and Orion, so I do have one more replay to show you guys featuring Zoats, so let's get to it. And here we are. You can see the Blade Singers slinking past, and here are the Zoats. This time I am playing the Wood Elves. Got a Spell Singer here. We're up against the Norskins, and this time the Zoats are kind of defending their jungle home a bit. Here, if we can take a look, we've got 2 of them in the woods. Spell Singer, like I said, Blade Singers, 3 Glade Guards with Starfire Shafts, 3 Eternal Guards, and a couple of Glade Riders with Spears. Sisters of Twilight also up in the air. They're going to be sniping at Wolfric on a Mammoth. We've got a Famir Boy, plenty of Marauder Horsemen, and 4 Skin Wolves, which is just fantastic. Also got some Norscan Ice Wolves who we're going to catch with some Glade Riders over on the far side. But yeah, in this matchup I figured Zoats are good for a few reasons. Number one, Skin Wolves do have physical resistance, right? So the magic damage and anti-large of the Zoats in theory would be good here. Likewise, Skin Wolves also majority non-AP damage, so with the Flesh to Stone in particular, we could get some good engagements. Likewise, of course, Earthblood healing going to be pretty good. And yeah, with the Blade Singers, we put them on their high weapon damage stance once again, up to 51 weapon damage to cut through that Norscan infantry. Also have magic damage to circumvent physical resistance on the Skin Wolves or the Enrage or whatever. Armor Sundering can potentially help combo a little bit there, but yeah, we're just pushing forward. Blade Rider's going to charge in the front line. Yes, charge. Yep, there we go. Nice charge in the front line. Blade Rider's just hitting these Marauders. Not really going to do a lot, but it's an engagement. We can do a little bit of damage on the charge there and maybe pull away, clean up some of those hounds. But over on the far side, exactly what I was talking about. The Zoats get into combat. You can see already that Flesh to Stone has gone off. I love the new effect on that. I think that's new. I can't remember that from before. Flaming Sword of Ruin does come in to help circumvent that the physical resistance that the Zoats have. They do have a little bit, of course, being Forest Spirits. No, actually, they don't. That's interesting. I thought for sure they did. Ha! We all learned something new today, but a Penumbral Pendulum comes in here from the Shadow Famir. Actually ends up doing a little bit of friendly fire, some damage to my Eternal Guards as well, but the Flesh to Stone both, you can see both Zoats up to 120 armor, just mop Those Skin Wolves, another Skin Wolf charges in. The Blade Singer's also up to 73 kills. They have taken a little bit of damage here from the Mammoth, but the Mammoth also getting pounded. I mean, the Sisters are firing their bow in here as well, so this double Zoat kind of flank overload here with the Blade Singers, it's a lot of value concentrated all into one place. We've also got the Eternal Guards in there as well, so it's just an overwhelming force here. These Skin Wolves, again, the magic damage and the anti-large means the Zoats actually counter them specifically very well. And Skin Wolves, I mean, this was already maybe a matchup that wasn't super hard for Wood Elves, some people would argue, but I actually think it could potentially be very difficult because of like mass Skin Wolves and some other issues. But right now, I've jumped out to an early lead versus Glock. Yeah, Wulfric the Wanderer, that enfeebling foe on him, plus the magic. Oh yeah, it was not a Lore of Life, it was Lore of Shadows Spellsinger. That's right, that Penumbral Pendulum was in fact mine. That was, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's a shadow, or a fire Familiar. Yeah, so here we go. Blade Singers. They pretty much don't get hit by that at all, but they are still somehow holding in here, up to 94 kills. Just got that XP Chevron, 100 kills, so we'll see if they actually ended up paying for themselves. They are pretty expensive for what they do. But it's nice to have, at least for me, that kind of one infantry sweeper unit to be able to ensure I can win an infantry engagement a little bit more decisively, but Rock's going to throw in the towel there. It's pretty much over anyway. But yeah, another great performance from the Zoats. Like, it's a couple matchups, I think, where they could potentially shine. I do, like I mentioned, with Greenskins, I'm concerned about Biggins, but Biggins also kind of get countered by, like, Deepwood Scouts, for example, and missile units, because they don't have missile block chance, so in theory, a build like what Taco had there with Deepwood Scouts plus Zoats is a pretty good idea against Greenskins. Same thing here with Norsca. Like, these Skin Wolves are, since they're one of the main threats in this matchup, the Zoats just counter them super hard, and I was able to get a very favorable situation there. Sisters also. I mean, Norsca's not likely to challenge you in the air. They might, I guess, but it's not really a good idea for them to. Starfire Shafts and Manticores are okay, but the Starfire Shafts absolutely shred a Frostworm, so that's just not good. But yeah, 119 kills there, 10,000, or sorry, 1,000 damage, 10,000, yeah, 10,000 damage, 1,000 damage value, and that still doesn't quite pay for them. You know, tactical value aside, just in terms of damage output, that's not quite what you would want to see. It's pretty close though, and I would call that a win for Blade Singers. Yeah, the Zoats, one of them didn't pay for himself in terms of damage value quite, but support abilities and the tactical ability to just beat the Skin Wolves decisively enough that they don't really have enough left in the tank to come back and be effective. This one definitely did pay for itself just in terms of damage, and plus the support. It's just fantastic. Blade Riders with Spears doing their thing, decent kind of hit and run attacks. Glade Guards also kind of all just paid for themselves, doing their decent amount of damage to whatever targets. And yeah, Spellsinger didn't actually get all that much damage in, but most of the value was from the enfeebling foe on Wulfric, allowing those Zoats to trade well, since their melee attack and defense is not that amazing. I actually am a big fan of potentially using them with Lore of Shadows, whether that be Drauka. I refuse to pronounce it correctly. I'm just a troll. I don't know. What is it? Is it actually Dreka? You guys will have to let me know. Have an argument down in the comments and tell me how to actually pronounce it, because apparently I've been doing it wrong every time. So, anyway, let's go ahead and finish up with Zoats. Obviously, comparisons to Dragon Ogres are apparent. So we'll look at that. Dragon Ogres are pretty much just better all around in terms of stats, but the Zoats have the support ability. So if we think about that, then given that you are going to want healing in most Wood Elf builds, right? 1650 for Dragon Ogres, full 1700 for Zoats. They have 10 less weapon strength, 4 less charge, 2 less attack, 7 less leadership, and 1,000 less HP is very significant. So even with the self-healing, I mean, they have 2 Bound Earthbloods, is 336 HP. 2 of these is still not the same amount of HP in total as the Dragon Ogres, so do keep that in mind. They can be a little bit squishy. And the Zoats, yeah, the missile resistance, 25%. I was thinking they did not have that, but in fact, it is the same. So there's a little bit of missile resistance there at the very least, but what I mean with them having healing is if you want healing in your build, then you don't necessarily have to take Lore of Life always, especially if you're, say, like running the Sisters up in the air. On the Eagle, I'm not really planning to use them in combat at all. Only 1650 without the Conjoined Destiny. You may want to take the Conjoined Destiny, but it seems like it's a little bit bugged at the moment. Like some things can potentially cause it to cancel itself out. Eagle Quiver, I also don't know that these magic missile abilities are necessarily always worth it just for cost effectiveness sake. Sisters of Twilight, just like this, up in the air, 1650, not too expensive. And then, of course, you're not really going to need to heal them, so it's not like you need a regrowth, so just the 2 regular Zoats to kind of heal Cav Blobs or whatever. And then, yeah, Lore of Shadows, I think, this kind of style, playing in this way, opens up Lore of Shadows, or like if you want to take 2 Zoats plus Dryka, potentially, in a given matchup, she also has Lore of Shadows, right? And this Enfeebling Foe lets you put that the combat stats of like an elite high value target that you might be hunting with the Zoats. It puts their combat stats into the dirt, so that the fact they don't have the best melee attack and defense in the world isn't so much of an issue. Their melee defense is actually pretty good, but even you compare them to like Treekin, who are not quite half the cost, but pretty close to half the cost, and they even have more melee defense, a lot less offensive stats overall, a little bit more HP and armor, so they are even tankier though. Kind of an interesting comparison, but definitely say that Zoats are going to find, in my mind, in my experience, their best matchups has actually been in the melee-focused matchups, where people would expect to take like a wide rush build to be able to deal with your skirmish tools. Then you have the Zoats to kind of counteract that flow. So definitely a very solid unit, good add to the Wood Elves, a little bit interesting in terms of aesthetics, but I'm a huge fan of them. So a big thanks everyone for joining. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.